Mr. Jealous, the question is, the opioid epidemic puts a strain on law enforcement, medical personnel, and our labor force, in addition to other things. We can't deny we need a fix. We need fixes. I want to know where the state can get the money to pay for treatment options or facilities that are sorely needed in places like the Eastern Shore and across Maryland.
And let's play the tape on this. My opponent ran for office saying that this was an emergency. In December of 2014, he said on his first day of office he would declare a state of emergency. He then didn't do it for 2 years, while thousands of our neighbors died. Deaths from opioids under his watch are up 160%. The leaders of our state had a plan to fund crisis response centers, 10 of them across the state. He only funded one. It was in Baltimore, and that one's been underfunded, where they're rationing the life-saving drug naloxone, and people are dying because the doctors say we just don't have enough for the city. He now says that he's gotten some money from the federal government. That's great. But what should we have done in the meantime? This is why we have a rainy day fund. If this was a natural disaster, we would have used it right away. Then you go and you sue the pharmaceutical companies, and you win back the funds. You hold them responsible. They're not funding my campaign like they're funding his campaign. I have no problem taking on these companies, suing them, and making them pay for the pain and the havoc that they have wreaked in our state.
Well, look, when I was running for governor 4 years ago, as I traveled around the state, I went to every single community, and everywhere I went, I said, what's the #1 problem facing your community? And they said, heroin and opioids. It surprised me, quite frankly. We promised, when I was elected, I promised that we were going to focus on this problem because it had not been focused on before. People were sweeping it under the rug. Immediately after becoming governor, I appointed Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford to chair the Heroin and Opioid Emergency Task Force, which went around the state and got input from people all across the state. We then implemented all the 36 recommendations of that, passed things through the legislature, did the things that we could do through executive order. I became the first governor in America to declare a state of emergency on this crisis because we were losing more people than shooting and traffic fatalities added together. So I promised to do something about it. First one to turn it into a state of emergency. We invested $600 million in state money. We've gone after it from every direction, from prevention to treatment to interdiction and to stopping the crime and the dealing of these drugs. Now, it's a terrible crisis. We're one of the only states to have bent the curve downward on prescription drug opioids, on prescription opioids, on heroin. But we have this new synthetic fentanyl and carfentanil that's 50 times stronger and more deadly. We're now fighting that one as well. But for you to try to use the deaths of these people, these 2,000 Marylanders that died, this is tearing apart families and communities from one end of the country to the other. I never go talk in Washington because I don't think they ever get anything done, but they asked me to come down to speak before a Senate committee because I'm a nationally recognized expert on this subject. I went down and testified. The Senate has now passed a bill. We desperately need federal funding to assist, but it's going to take the state, the feds, and local governments all working together.
Man, I have a cousin who's in rehab for heroin right now.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, I have a cousin who's in rehab for heroin right now. All right? This isn't about, this is about real lives, sir. This is about real families, sir.
Yeah, I know it is.
I've sat with 13-year-old girls in Talbot County who buried 3 classmates in the 12 months before. I've sat with pastors in Baltimore City who fear that their high school reunion will have to be at the cemetery because they buried so many classmates. And for you to sit here, sir, and suggest this is about politics, this is about lives. And to say that you did a study when the Democrats gave you a plan and you refused to champion it. We needed those 10 crisis response centers all across our state this entire time, sir, and you have not led. I get that you're an expert, but we needed you to use that expertise on day 1. And you waited until something like day 730 to declare a state of emergency while our neighbors died. And that is not leadership. It is not acceptable. And don't tell me this is politics. This is about people and lives.
Okay, we were the first state in America to declare a state of emergency. I know it's about lives. I'm the one that brought this issue to the forefront. We're now nationally recognized as the leader in America on this subject. Yes, people are still dying, and it's tragic. And I lost my first cousin to a heroin overdose myself. But to get up here and talk about I'm responsible for the deaths of these people. Imagine had we not spent this. Imagine if
you waited 2 years. You said day 1.
I was the first one in America. We started it 3 weeks after I
You said day one, and it was 2 years.
Okay. It's not true. We've done a lot.
It is
It's a
true.
tragedy. We've made great progress on certain aspects of it.
December 2014,
Yeah.
when you would take office in January
In
2015, you
February,
said
I
on
started
first
the heroin
day
and
that you would declare
opioid
a state of emergency, and you never
task
did.
force.
So you took
You're-
2 years.
you're just-
Well, you studied it while Democrats had a plan. You
That's
should
not
have
true.
backed up the Democrats.
That's not true. And let me address the other made-up story about the 10 centers. We've doubled the number of treatment beds. And we've spent more money. The center in Baltimore City, we increased from $2 million to $5 million. We've made naloxone available everywhere across the state. And it was the state legislature, your friends, the Democrats in the legislature, that took the wording out for those 10 centers. Not me. I had nothing to do with that. I thought it was a
Sir,
mistake.
you said to...
No.
The governor controls the budget.
No,
so
no, that's not
we
true.
all know that.
We make suggestions and then the legislature moves the money around.
Let's
They took
move
the
on.
centers